This has to be one of the most unlikely vehicles to be actually any good, and there's a reason why we're showcasing it today, because we have had one of the best games I have ever had in a tier 8 medium, and it's going to be a really interesting one because this tank is kind of a hybrid between a load of different things, and I think it's one of the most interesting Monster Hunter vehicles that you can actually get, and it's severely underrated, I think, in terms of where it's at on the levels of Monster Hunter tanks that we have available as part of the free earn operation, which you can take advantage of course, being able to pick up any of the Monster Hunter vehicles that have been released up until last year, not including the ones that we can of course get this year as part of this year's promotion, I guess, or sales that we have in the store, which are inclusive of course, the Halloween 2023 vehicles, the Pharaoh's Fury and the Roswell XM66F. So disregarding those, all of the other ones are available for free, but the Wraith, the Panzer 58 Mutt that has a load of space armor slapped all over it. I wonder why this tank would be better than the Panzer 58 Mutt. Really takes a genius to work this one out. Well, of course, here are the two tanks. You'll be surprised to see that, yes, the Panzer 58 Mutt is a faster vehicle, being able to go 50 kilometers an hour, whereas the Panzer 58 Mutt, the Wraith version, is only able to go 44 kilometers an hour. So, the armor means that you don't go as fast. But surely that doesn't necessarily mean that the Wraith is going to be any worse, or that the Panzer 58 Mutt is going to be any worse. But actually, the Wraith has less hit points, but it does get the same alpha damage, and you can see here that the average damage per minute, you got 2.9k, whereas you got 2.4k. Granted, we don't have a commander in the Mutts, but we do in the Wraith, so they're about the same. But most importantly, one of the biggest things is that armor can really pull off a ton of bounces, and we have a ton of kind of decent replays to showcase too, in fact, one of them being a really long one that was just insane, and I think you guys will really enjoy that. But most importantly, how did we set up this tank? How did we make it so good, and how are we able to carry in even the toughest of games being tier 10? So what have we done? Well, we've set up the tank with advanced loader, we've got it with advanced optics and advanced concealment. Why have we done that? Well, it's essentially to be able to spot, get assistance damage, and combine that with actual damage with the advanced loader. Now, because the accuracy of this tank is pretty good, I mean, with all of the perks and bonuses that we've got, we didn't necessarily need vertical stabilizers in this tank, even though it does grant you that increased accuracy, which is beneficial to some vehicles. I don't feel like we really need it, as long as we're aiming properly and that sort of thing. The 10 degrees of gun depression on this tank when you're using the armor is really nice. You can bounce quite a few rounds when you're using that, and of course it's kind of difficult to reliably pen this thing when it is using the gun depression, but it is still pennable. Its turret isn't particularly amazing. In between the space bits you can be penned, and so you can't reliably kind of rely on this tank being able to bounce, but it's there and it certainly can bounce when you do use it correctly. Now, of course, the hull armor of this vehicle gets spaced all over the front of the hull, which means the upper plate is actually kind of bouncy, and maybe we'll see a few bounces as we go through the replays, and that is because essentially when you angle or make it really extreme angles, the angle of the tank's armor underneath the spaced armor becomes really well angled, making the actual armor very good. And then what's more is that spaced armor provides then the it reduces the penetration that will allow you to be able to go through the armor underneath. So when you combine both of those things, yeah, the armor can actually pull off quite a few bounces. The side armor is also covered in spaced armor as well, much like the upper hull, which means you can bounce again. So ideally, this tank is actually quite well suited to be in an aggressive medium tank, even if you don't get the most amount of hit points. It does pack a punch with that 280 alpha damage, having the 9 centimeter as opposed to a lot of the other mediums, like some of the kind of Americans, which may only have 240 alpha. So it's kind of in that nice range where you have decent alpha damage but you also have very, very good DPM, or at least the ability to kind of retrack opponents and stuff. Combine that all together, this tank becomes very, very nice indeed. Now, am I saying it's overpowered? Absolutely not. This tank is not overpowered in the slightest, but under the right hands, and when you use it in the correct situations, this tank can be really, really fun to play. And I've thoroughly enjoyed playing this tank to be able to review it for you guys. And I thought, since Monster Hunter's out right now, what's a better time than to actually test this one out? And if you want to pick it up, if you think that this is the tank for you, it is on sale right now, being able to purchase it, at least in the store, if I'm not being a complete bot. 6,750 gold, and if we have a look at how much that is actually going to cost you, 6,700, yeah, about £20. So I mean, it's not the worst price for a premium tank, but at the end of the day, your money is your money, and even if this video just allows you to understand how to take this thing out, then it's worth it for me to be able to showcase it to you guys. So let's see what this insane replay actually was. Let's jump in there now to see how we managed to pull it off. Now then, this replay is of course on Cliff, which is one of the maps that I kind of really enjoy, regardless of whether you play a medium, whether you're playing a heavy, blah blah blah. All of the tank classes feel like they have somewhat of a role. Even if you're playing light tanks on this map, you can make it work, maybe less so with a light tank, but it is still possible to have a good game. And unfortunately for us, in this game, it's not looking too hot. It's a tier 10 game. This tank does have +2, -2, of course, being able to meet tier 6s, whilst also being able to meet tier 10s. And so, yeah, it's can be a little bit dodgy when you're coming up against those higher tier tank destroyers, especially when you're coming up against some of the most recent tank destroyers that they've been releasing, like the Ruthless. But maybe we'll see a little Ruthless in this game, and maybe this tank can be Ruthless to be able to take it out. But given the start of the game, we always know that simply light tanks typically like to cross up onto the hill area. It is a common spot. It's somewhere where you can get often quite a bit of free damage at the beginning of the game, or just really annoy the enemy team to stop them from being able to do what they want to do. Now, in this game, I'm going to do something that you probably shouldn't do, or at least in a game where like we kind of had to do something if we wanted to win this game. And I'm not going to lie, we severely carried this game, super hard, even with all of the tier 10s in the game. And it was both down to a bit of luck, a bit of skill, and of course this tank entirely. So with that being said, where are we going in this part of the game? Well, it's been a pretty lackluster game. I mean, we're nearly 2 minutes in. We've done 270 damage. So yeah, it's not looking all too good. The enemy team have a lot of the map control. They've been able to push up on the eastern side of the map. They've also got the center. They've also got the hill area in E3 and 4 where they're able to kind of counter us. And they've also got campers back in a 4 and 5, most likely, which can be a little bit of a pain. Now, unfortunately for us, the gun depression of the tank is kind of messing me up here, but we are going to try and aggressively attack this Bellerophon, another Monster Hunter vehicle that you can get. Now, in doing so, what we do here is we actually pull up against the rocks, making sure to put our frontal hull armor towards the Bellerophon. We make sure to aim for the side of that guy, managing to bounce 2 rounds. So there you go, the armor actually working against the same tier vehicles that we're playing against. But having pushed up to the hill, what are we intending to do? Well, we take our first shot of damage against the 752 there, but return one as a favor. But in coming up here, we find ourselves up against a Bellerophon who's quickly taken out by the Leopard PTA, which is nice. And then, of course, another 752 who we miss just slightly. But this Bellerophon here is going to be a pain. So what we have to do here, because if we stay where we were, we're going to get farmed by that 752. So we push down and we face hug this Bellerophon. And this tank is actually very able to do this, even if, you know, you do have some weak points on the turret. You're seeing me stick a gun into his gun to avoid being hit, and also using that turret armor and the face hugging that this tank can do to be able to bounce a little bit of extra damage. Now, we have taken about half of our hit points worth of damage, but we've secured the center and really won the eastern side of the map, which is a key to victory on this map entirely. So with that being said, what do we do from here? Well, having that we've in the fact that we've done, you know, 1700 damage, and it looks like we're winning this game, at least by numbers, as we say that, and one of our teammates in the FV gets knocked out by the enemy artillery. we can start to push towards the opponents who are going to be in the middle. Now, note to self, what I do here is rather than push on the left where, you know, if my teammate on the right in the E4 doesn't actually push up with me, we could get YOLO'd and we won't have any team support. So I go on the right. That means that both the E4 can support me and also all of those 3 heavy tanks that have also pushed up can also try and help me out. Now, the Arachnid overcommits, allowing me to get a free shot into the side of him, finishing him off and removing one of the more annoying tanks that could have possibly been a pain in the backside in this game. Then we low roll, of course, the 752, leaving him alive, and then the E4 bounces, which is not ideal, and then the E4 just goes like fully in, and unfortunately for him, it's not going to end up all too well. The 752 manages to get around the side of the E4, which means, yeah, it's really not looking too hot at all. But we do have probably one of the most annoying tanks to come up against, the E3, who's managed to kind of get into a decent spot here. He's able to kind of counter us right now. And with the fast reload that we do have on this tank, I'm aiming to just get as many shots in and support the E4 as much as I can, even if he doesn't end up actually being able to come our way with a win. Now, some quick aim shots here, being able to help out the team. But you're seeing here, we're going for the tracking shot on the E3 if possible. We actually damage his engine, but we want to get one more into him, and we managed to do that, but we only track him, and not the tank we want to be seeing. The most overpowered little absolute rat of a tank that we're ever going to see. But maybe we can, you know, use this tier 8 to be able to deal with that overpowered tier 10, who is technically a medium, but probably more like a heavy tank and with much better armor. Now, the AVRE is, of course, just coming around. I have no idea how he managed to hit that shot, but we got to capitalize. We have to try and deal as much damage to this guy as possible. But with the IS-4 just rolling around, we've also got to deal damage to him. Now, what I do here is I pull back, but what do? We track him in place, allowing me to be able to keep him stuck in his location. Now, he's looking at someone else, so we re-track him in this location. He's then fired, which means he has about a 16-second reload, allowing me to re-track the AVRE in this location and allowing me to keep on just pumping through this guy. And then, knowing that he's actually turned and could potentially hit us, we pull all the way back, allowing our E75 to be able to hit him. And there you go. Dealing 4,200 damage so far, and still with 652 assistance in there in the mix as well. So, game looks a little bit better. We were starting to throw with the E4 on our team getting taken out, and a load of the other vehicles at tier 10 also being quickly removed as well. But we now are in a bit of a pickle. So there are 3 tank destroyers, and we only seem to find one. One of them being the T95, which is a pretty slow vehicle. I'm looking over here to see if we can find out where this Badger is in the game, and there's also a little sneaky tank as well hiding around. Now, I moved down here and, oh, for God's sake, the Badger's moving up, so we have to try and deal a bit of damage. He fires, which allows us to try and get another one into him, so we go for that lower plate. We end up actually hitting the track, which kind of removes a little bit of that track. Now, he overcommits here, and he ends up actually giving us the side of his vehicle. And this is like the ultimate dream. This is what you want when you're in a lower tier vehicle up against a non-turreted tank destroyer. And here you go. Easy as you like. Now, the Badger, thinking he is funny, is of course trying to turn around and deal a bit of damage to us. But uh-oh, there's another tank destroyer coming up at the same time. So what do? Well, we actually trap the Badger in place, and then we're hoping we can bounce one. The Badger actually bounces, and there you go. We managed to pen him through the tracks to secure the kill. But there is one vehicle left alive. It's the Jagdpanzer E100, who I thought might actually try and get us, which is why we pulled back down the hill and potentially could have taken the Badger hit if he'd managed to pen us. But we didn't need to really do that. Because the Jaeger actually YOLO'd off the cliff, so we would have been fine if we did actually go up, but just in case, we did decide to avoid doing that. Now, we get lucky to actually hit this guy. I wasn't expecting myself to actually keep on moving as we nearly threw ourselves off the cliff, but we've done 6,000 damage so far, which is a brilliant game in this vehicle, but it's still not over yet. There is a defender and me, both of which can be hit by this Jaeger, both of which will just get automatically penned, and I'm pinging to the defender to go around so we can get a crossfire on this Jaeger. But unfortunately, he doesn't seem to want to do that. And in fact, the defender here is going to try and do something completely different to what I would hope he would be doing in this game, in which, you know, hopefully he can help me basically get that crossfire, and at least he can't get both of us if he does try to push one of us. So that's kind of what I'm hoping. So I say to the defender, follow me please, and we can both deal with this Jaeger together, rather than, you know, setting up, you know, trying to go one side, one of us gets taken out, and then by the time the other actually gets to capitalize on it, the Jaeger is going to be reloaded. But the defender has other plans. He decides he's going to drop down onto the enemy's base, or at least where they typically are. And so what I'm going to do is I'm expecting the Jaeger to either push down to this location down here, or I'm expecting the Jaeger to be kind of sat just in D3 and he's about to take out the defender. So I'm hoping that he doesn't manage to take out this defender. The Jaeger gets spotted. He's actually looking this way, which is nice, and that allows us to get into this position here. We're hoping we can get one shot for free into the Jaeger before he realizes, and unfortunately we're not able to do that. So we go for the tracking shot. We've at least burned his repair kit, which allows us to maybe later on track this guy without him being able to move, which is what we want against a non-turreted tank. Now then, we are now just basically holding off for the defender to come in, because I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to pull down. I don't want to get taken out this quickly, and even if I really want this damage all to myself, which I'm sure we might have been able to do if we'd literally just gone down, but you never know, maybe the Jaeger gets a shot into us, maybe he's able to finish us off, and then he could potentially deal with the defender as well. So I don't want to lose having done this much damage, so we're just going to wait. We're going to make the smart play. We're not doing anything stupid here, and so we just wait for the defender to come up from behind, and hopefully he can get a free shot into the back of the Jaeger. The Jaeger does get hit in the back, and that forces him to actually turn. So in doing so, we actually go for this guy's track again. I want to lock him in place, and then we can farm him up. But with him now turning towards the defender, we come in and we go for the tracking shot again. We actually track this guy out in the open, which is perfect. Rather than staying where I was, he could potentially untrack himself and then turn for me, maybe finish me off. I actually just keep going, and we can go for that tracking shot again and deal damage there, picking up 6,900 damage and 1,100 assist along the way as well. 8,000 combined damage in this tank with 2,877 base XP in the Wraith. Yeah, one of the most ridiculous games I think I've had in a tier 10 game as well. It's not like we were facing tier 8s and below. We were actually in the worst case possible matchup, and we still did a crazy amount of damage with 3 enemies taken out and basically rinsing that Badger for all of his hit points. Yeah, that guy must have been very triggered by myself. But yeah, we played it fairly well. Got a little bit lucky with a few bounces that we pulled off in this game, but overall played it very, very well. And of course, not risking anything, letting the defender come in and help us out with the Jaeger at the end. And we picked up 400,000 silver in this battle as well. And yeah, just a crazy battle in the Wraith. But that's not it. Let's have a look at a more average game that you'll be having in the Wraith, because this isn't the standard of this vehicle. And so we pick off with a game that's already started in, of course, Canals. And this map and matchup doesn't typically go how we would love to see it end up. And yeah, I guess spoiler alert. But it kind of showcases what this tank can do. Now we are in not the best matchup. Once again, it's a tier 10 game. Yay, fun for all. Constantly in tier 10 when we're playing our tier 8s right now. And so we push up here. We manage to find ourselves a little Holland Hund. The XM55-1 or XM551, which is the Sheridan, decides to push up as well. We try and get a shot into the Holland Hund and end up actually penning the Sheridan again. Now the Sheridan's going to be a bit of a pain in my backside during this entire game, and hopefully we can get one more into the Holland Hund here, but the gun depression is kind of rinsing us here, and that's because the spaced armor does provide that extra bit of kind of armor, which means you can't move the gun down as far, which kind of sucks. But we've come out with a positive trade, which is okay. We've done 800 damage to taking about 500 something in that region, 440 if we're going to be like somewhat precise. And so with the FE4202, who's also pushed up the tier 8 tier 10 kind of premium version that they gave away when they removed the FV4202 from tier 10, and then they ended up putting it back into tier 10. It's the premium version. Everyone got that for free if you actually owned the FV4202 prior to it being removed. They did that with a few of the kind of premium vehicles in the game, but that was a very interesting one for sure, and I really wanted the FV4202 before it was kind of removed from the game, but unfortunately didn't manage to get it, so we had to wait to be able to pick up the premium version for gold. Yeah, not so fun, but we now have the actual FV4202 in the game, which is brilliant, and a fantastic tank at tier 10. So from here, we're able to pick up a little bit of damage up against these vehicles who are, of course, pushing over to the northeastern side of the map. It's really free damage. We're not likely to get spotted unless some of the mediums or potentially some of the tank destroyers push up. Now, this is not good. We actually bounce around here. Once again, the armor actually working, which is fantastic. The enemy light tank is behind us, but I don't want to kind of throw myself too far away. I'd take a little auto aim, probably not the best idea I could have possibly done, and then the Holland gets away with YOLOing. I don't know how this guy actually got away without taking any damage. Yeah, a little bit sus, but we managed to high roll with the enemy 113 to finish him off, which was yeah, a bit lucky, but we pick up 2,000 damage. This game not bounced as much, but we've still bounced 910, and we've also picked up a decent amount of damage, 5 for effect, and would be an okay game for playing in this tank. But there's still something left to be said in this game for our vehicle, and we're actually losing this game, and surprise surprise, we do actually fully on lose this game during this one. Now, the Sheridan here does indeed hit me on the move, or stalls to aiming, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, I've hit people on the move as well, but yeah, it was just kind of sucks that that guy hit me in just as he was about to go behind a house as well. I was hoping he wouldn't get the chance to hit us, but that's fine. Now, I pinged to my light tank, let's go push this guy because we need to get him out of the game before the enemy tanks start grouping up together and then just YOLO us all at once. But unfortunately, I can't take a hit from the vehicle, the Holland over here, so I can't really push up. I can't do anything. I have to wait, and that kind of really does suck, and so we're just having to wait for our team to try and do something, which as you know, never usually works out all too well. Now we push up, the Holland Hood is of course pushing up. We managed to trap this guy. It's a little bit risky. He then randomly fires, I'm not quite sure what that was, and that allows us to get one free hit into him. Now the medium tank that's behind me, he's trying to deal with an IS-3 auto. He's a one-shot. It's the SDA-1 on our team. So what do we do? Well, of course, we go for the tracking shot on the IS-3 auto, which allows him to be locked down, and we can essentially go for the actual damaging shot. Our light tank comes up from behind. Don't quite know what he's doing, but, you know, wasting time, and then we end up finishing this guy off anyway. So we deal 3,000 damage here with 910 blocked, and also 200 assistance, which is you know, a fairly standard game. I feel like this is what you could expect in the tier 10 game in this vehicle if you play reasonably well. Not perfectly, as we've lost a lot of hit points to tanks that we probably shouldn't have. Got a little bit unlucky in this game as well, and then of course the Chisel surprises us, auto-aiming or at least flicking onto us really quickly there after being spotted, and then he manages to take us out, which kind of sucks, but there we go. I mean, we've done 3,000 damage, so we can't be too critical. But at the same time, our team decide that they're going to throw themselves away against all of the vehicles, and we end up actually losing this game. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, hopefully that gave you an indication as to what this tank can do at the top level. I'll be interested to see what you guys think of the Wraith or the Panzer 58 Mutz, as well as the non kind of premium version that's, yeah, I guess filled with space armor and a bit slower. Yeah, let me know what you think of both of the vehicles, and of course, yeah, what Monster Hunter tank did you actually pick in the Monster Hunter operation, if you've already picked, or what are you gonna pick in your premium free vehicle that you can get. Other than that, I hope you had a fantastic day, and of course I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week if you do decide to do anything spectacular, or if not, just have a brilliant rest of the week. Either way, I'll see you in the next one. We've got plenty more content coming out, and I will be there waiting for you. Goodbye.